Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the scandals that defined the 1980s. Some were shocking, some were tragic, and some were just downright bizarre. These stories dominated headlines at the time, but many have been forgotten until now. Here are the top 10 celebrity scandals from the 1980s you totally forgot about. Stick around for number 1 because we know you won't believe you forgot about this one. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and let's jump straight in. 10. Lionel Richie's love triangle exposed. Behind Lionel Richie's smooth voice and timeless ballads was a messy personal scandal. In 1988, his wife Brenda Harvey literally caught him in the act with mistress Diane Alexander. Reports say she didn't just walk in quietly. She allegedly attacked Lionel, Diane, and even the police officers who showed up. Lionel ended up divorcing Brenda after nearly 2 decades of marriage, and in 1995, he actually married Diane Alexander, the very woman at the center of the scandal. They had 2 children together before divorcing years later. For fans, it was the moment the romantic ballad king's real life looked more like a soap opera than a love song. 9. Young and the Restless affair scandal. Soap operas were known for shocking affairs on screen, but in the 80s, the Young and the Restless had one brewing off-screen too. Actress Brenda Dickson, famous for playing Jill Abbott, was rumored to be romantically involved with creator William J. Bell. Insiders claimed the alleged affair influenced casting and storylines, creating major tension behind the scenes. When Dickson was let go in 1987, she didn't leave quietly. She later filed a lawsuit claiming she was blacklisted from Hollywood and wrongfully terminated. While the case didn't restore her career, it exposed the messy power dynamics behind daytime TV, blurring the line between scripted soap drama and real Hollywood scandal. 8. Madonna vs. the Vatican. In 1989, Madonna dropped like a prayer, and the world exploded. The music video featured burning crosses, sexual imagery, and her kissing a black saint figure. The Vatican quickly condemned her, calling it blasphemous. Pepsi had just signed a $5 million sponsorship deal with Madonna, but after religious groups protested, Pepsi pulled the ad after airing just once. But here's the twist. Madonna kept the $5 million anyway. What was supposed to ruin her only fueled her rise as the queen of pop. Controversy wasn't a setback for Madonna, it was her brand. 7. Creepy Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry was already a rock and roll legend, but his reputation crumbled in the 80s. In 1990, police raided his Missouri estate and discovered hidden cameras in the women's restroom of his restaurant. Dozens of women came forward with lawsuits, accusing Berry of secretly recording them. Although he denied the worst allegations, he ended up paying out over $1.2 million in settlements. For a man hailed as one of the fathers of rock and roll, it was a dark and disturbing fall from grace. 6. Watch your mouth. Milli Vanilli, Rob Pilatus, and Fab Morvan, better known as Milli Vanilli, looked like the future of pop in the late 80s. With catchy songs and stylish looks, they won a Grammy in 1990. But cracks showed when their hit Girl You Know It's True started skipping during a live performance, exposing that they weren't actually singing. By late 1990, the truth came out. None of the vocals on their records were theirs. Their Grammy was stripped, lawsuits piled up, and the scandal became one of the most humiliating in music history. What started as a perfect pop dream ended as a global joke. 5. Ozzy Osbourne's bites head of a live bat. On stage, in 1982, heavy metal legend Ozzy Osbourne was already notorious for wild antics, but one night in Des Moines, Iowa, things got truly insane. A fan threw what Ozzy thought was a rubber bat onto the stage. Without hesitation, he picked it up and bit the head clean off, only to realize it was real. The audience screamed, paramedics rushed him off stage, and Ozzy had to undergo rabies shots immediately. Critics called him deranged, fans called him a legend, and Ozzy himself admitted later it wasn't his smartest move. but it cemented his image as the Prince of Darkness forever. 4. Matthew Broderick's deadly car crash. Long before Ferris Bueller's Day Off made him an icon, Matthew Broderick was involved in a tragedy. In 1987, while driving in Northern Ireland with girlfriend Jennifer Grey, he accidentally swerved into oncoming traffic, colliding head-on with another car. Tragically, the crash killed a mother and daughter instantly. Broderick was initially charged with dangerous driving, but the charge was reduced, and he only paid a $175 fine. Families of the victims were outraged, and the story cast a dark shadow over the actor's rising career. 3. Corey Feldman sues his parents. Corey Feldman was one of the hottest teen stars of the 80s, starring in Gremlins, The Goonies, and The Lost Boys. But fame came at a cost. At 15, Feldman accused his parents of squandering his $1 million fortune. He filed for emancipation, saying they were more interested in his money than his well-being. The courts agreed, and Corey won control over his finances. While the lawsuit made headlines, Feldman later revealed even darker struggles in Hollywood, including abuse and exploitation. His story exposed the brutal reality of child stardom in the 80s. Honorable mentions: Vanessa Williams lost her Miss America crown in 1984 after nude photos surfaced in Penthouse. It was the first time a Miss America had been dethroned, and she was set to become the first African-American Miss America too. Marvin Gaye's tragic death, one of the most heartbreaking stories of the decade. Marvin Gaye, the legendary Motown singer behind Let's Get It On and What's Going On, was killed in 1984 by his own father. The two had a troubled relationship for years, and during a heated argument at their Los Angeles home, Marvin Sr. shot his son twice in the chest. Marvin was just 44 years old, and the world was stunned. His death was a tragedy not just for music, but for anyone who admired his soulful artistry. To this day, it remains one of the most infamous scandals in pop culture history. Sean Penn's marriage to Madonna was plagued by violent incidents, with reports of abuse making constant headlines. Rob Lowe was caught in one of Hollywood's first-ever sex tape scandals involving 2 women and a minor. Though charges were dropped, his career took a serious hit. Todd Bridges, from Everybody I Hates Chris, was arrested for attempted murder in 1989 after a drug-fueled incident, though he was later acquitted. Comedy legend John Belushi died of a drug overdose in 1982 at just 33, marking one of the decade's most tragic losses. Princess Diana shocked the world in 1987 when she shook hands with AIDS patients, breaking stigma and changing global views on the disease. Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson was stripped of his Olympic gold medal in 1988 after testing positive for steroids in one of the biggest sports scandals ever. 1. Jim and Tammy Faye Barker. Jim and Tammy Faye Barker were one of the wildest scandals of the 1980s, a mix of religion, money, sex, and TV drama. Here's the full story broken down. Jim Barker was a televangelist who rose to fame in the 1970s and 80s. With his wife Tammy Faye Barker, they built a Christian media empire, including their show The PTL Club, Praise the Lord. They weren't your typical preachers. Tammy Faye was known for her heavy makeup, mascara-streaked tears, and flamboyant style, while Jim focused on fundraising and preaching prosperity gospel. Their empire included Heritage USA, a Christian theme park and resort in South Carolina that became one of the most popular attractions in the country at its peak. By the mid-80s, the Barkers were making millions, largely from donations by their viewers. In 1987, it all came crashing down when it was revealed Jim had used church funds to cover up a sexual encounter with church secretary Jessica Hahn. Soon after, investigations exposed that PTL had misused hundreds of millions of dollars in donations. Money that was supposed to go to charitable projects was being used for their lavish lifestyles: mansions, luxury cars, air-conditioned doghouses, and private jets. The scandal became one of the biggest fraud cases in American religious history. Jim Barker was convicted in 1989 of fraud and conspiracy, sentenced to 45 years in prison and fined $500,000. He served about 5 years before his sentence was reduced. Tammy Faye stood by him during much of the trial, but the couple eventually divorced. Despite the disgrace, Tammy Faye reinvented herself as a cult icon in the 90s and 2000s. She embraced the LGBTQ+ community, appeared on talk shows and reality TV, and became known for her resilience and quirky personality. Jim, meanwhile, returned to televangelism after prison. Controversial as ever, selling survivalist products like doomsday food buckets. The scandal was so notorious it inspired books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood movie, The Eyes of Tammy Faye, 2021, where Jessica Chastain won an Oscar for portraying Tammy. Today, their downfall is seen as a cautionary tale about power, greed, and faith being exploited for profit. The 80s weren't just about neon lights and shoulder pads. They were filled with scandals that shaped pop culture forever. Which of these shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more wild celebrity throwbacks. Until next time, keep your history scandalous.